Welcome back to our podcast.
We're on a journey to learn about all things gerontology.
I'm Francesca.
And I'm Cindy.
And this is Gerontology Journey.
We are in the process of getting our master's in gerontology, and you guys are following along with that journey and everything that we're learning.
We're on our third episode now. Last episode, we talked a little bit about how to stay safe at home, how to age in place. And this time, we're going to talk about your other options, maybe if you don't want to stay home or can't any longer.
I'm so excited to dive into this because this is something that I do on a day-to-day basis. We're going to talk about different senior living options.
Yes. First, we're going to talk about an interesting article that we read, some new gerotechnology, which is very, very exciting in our world and hopefully in your world because we want to share it with you guys. It is a wearable AI device that helps with early signs of frailty in older adults. And it's very cool because it can help detect when you're going to fall or like the process of your body getting weaker and leading up to a fall, which is amazing technology for us Gero nerds.
Oh, it's so exciting. And how it seems to work is that it's like a soft mesh sleeve that essentially monitors the leg acceleration.
Yeah, so this was something they made in the Gutruff lab at the University of Arizona, and it's a wearable device that kind of detects your gait, I guess, and it's really cool because falls can be really detrimental, as we covered in the last episode. And if we can detect maybe an early sign of a fall, you can help prevent it. Falls are never going to be preventable, but this is maybe something that you can get physical therapy for, and you can hopefully avoid going to the hospital.
Absolutely. You can also start to modify your home, right? So these exciting pieces of gerotechnology that are coming out, and I think this one is so cool. It can really help families know, how do we fix things? How do we change things? And so we talked about some of those cool things that you can do in your home, the last episode. And I just think this is going to help everyone. And of course, you can't not 100% prevent falls, but doing everything they can, like lifting up those area rugs, I think is a great one and a great start for folks. And starting to use a walker, really knowing, hey, right now's the time, right? And they can test that out with this very cool technology.
Yeah, they tested this technology on older adults in rural areas who were over, a 50 or 100 mile radius outside of a hospital.
Round trip. So 50 miles there, 50 miles back.
Which is crazy to think about because if you do fall and you're that far away from a hospital and maybe you punctured a lung or you severed an artery, that can be very, very detrimental. So if these older adults hypothetically had this mesh sleeve, they're detecting like, hey, you're getting a little bit more fragile. We should get some physical therapy in here and help strengthen your muscles. That can really prevent death. I mean, in the long run, when you think about it.
To make those changes that they need right away. I just think it's so exciting, and I can't wait for new stuff to come out.
Yes, I'm all about preventative care, and this is, in essence, what this sleeve is preventative care. And if you know me, in my everyday life, I say that phrase all the time, preventative care all the time, because I don't think that we really consider it. We just act on we learn the lessons the hard way.
Absolutely. And so this is exciting because they can go ahead and know what technology do we need in place. This is what I think technology is so good for, right? Is making these really positive changes. Right. Although we do know that not every older adult is ready to embrace technology. So if you're an older child, meaning a child of an older adult, check out this stuff. It's very cool, and we will go ahead and make sure that we have the article linked in the description below so that you can click in it and find out more.
Right. So last episode, like I said, we talked about aging in the home. This episode, we're going to just go over all of the different options for when you can no longer stay at home. And we'll just do like a brief overview. So the first one I think everyone thinks of, including myself before I came into this industry, was a skilled nursing facility. We talked about those no words last time, and the equivalent would be a nursing home, but we don't say that anymore. A skilled nursing facility is somewhere that is a little bit more hospital-like. They can handle a higher level of care. And usually a skilled nursing facility is split into two sides. One that you go to for rehab, and that's paid through your Medicare benefit, and one that is a long-term stay, and that is paid through your Medicaid benefit. So we'll have a longer episode based on skilled nursing facilities coming up, but that's just like a quick overview, and we'll dive more into it in this episode as well.
Absolutely. The next piece that we will talk about is independent living. And just a very brief overview of independent living. It is an apartment like and or hotel-like setting. You may drive by them when you see them, and no care is provided at these communities. They do most of the time include, your rent would include 3 meals a day, snacks, local transportation, and activities.
The next one, the next level, I should say, down would be assisted living, and that is exactly what it sounds like. They can assist you with your activities of daily living, but they can't provide care in the same way a skilled nursing can, so that's why it's called an assisted living. And in your base rent, you also get 3 meals, you get snacks, you get transportation, you get activities, but you also get care added to. Sometimes it costs. They do a tiered system, and sometimes it costs on top of your rent. Sometimes it's combined, and they can help you shower. They can do your laundry for you. They can help you with your medications. So that is an assisted living facility.
The next option that we're going to talk about is memory care. And sometimes memory cares are on the same campus as assisted livings, and sometimes there are standalone memory cares. In California, a memory care will have not a fully locked, but it will have a door that you can press on it and for 15 to 20 seconds, and you can exit. They are egress doors, and that is what makes it different. Of course, they will still feed you. You'll have your 3 meals a day, your snacks, your activities. Outings will look different than they do in assisted living, and most of the time it is a base rate of care with the additional levels and or points added on, which I will dive into deeper into this episode. What is the next option?
So the last option we're really going to dive into is called a board and care. It is kind of an assisted living, can kind of be a memory care, but it looks just like any house in your neighborhood. It's usually max of 6 people that can live there. Sometimes they're called a 6-bed facility. And we say RCFE quite a bit. I would say we refer to them as RCFEs, which stands for
Residential Care Facility for the Elderly. But RCFE also does include assisted livings, right, as well as memory care communities, and RCFE is very much a term that can be used nationally, but is really, really used in California as well.
Yeah. So usually, and a lot of times, these 6-bed facilities, they look exactly like a home. Maybe they'll have like a ramp that leads up to the front door, or a sign outside, or a sign in the window. But yeah, it's just any other home. It's modified to have easy shower access and, be a little bit safer for an older adult.
Absolutely. And then we're going to touch very briefly on a CCRC. A CCRC, Continuing Care Retirement Community.
Right. Yeah.
It essentially has an independent living, assisted living, and memory care. There is a buy-in involved with that, and you will get a portion back whether you pass away, and or if you do move out. And if you run out of money at many of the CCRCs, they will take care of you. There is a financial test that you would have to take, as well as a health test in order to move in independently. CCRCs are a beast within themselves. Many people who work within senior living don't necessarily have a strong understanding even of them because they're very complex and there are differences among various CCRC communities. So we will devote a whole episode to CCRC communities as well as have a guest on to really help us understand that, especially if that is something you want. A CCRC is a true age in place because they also have a skilled nursing on their campus. So if your level of care is so high that you have a feeding tube, you will always have a home on that campus. And for some people, that is very important for them. It does tend to be more expensive than many of the other options listed. So it is truly for folks who have planned out very well for their future. So that is those options, and we will dive into that. However, some people, when they start this process, they start it on their own. They may turn to the internet, but for many people, they do like to have the support of what's called a placement agent or a senior care coordinator. They have all kinds of different names. And Francesca's going to tell us more about how to locate one.
For me, myself, I would probably go to the internet, just like everybody else, and you might get a lot of different answers if you Google placement agent. I don't think you will get exactly what you're looking for. If I were giving my loved one advice about how to find a placement agency in their neck of the woods, I would say call the closest assisted living that you know of and say, hey, I want to come tour your community, but I want to tour a couple more as well. Can you give me the name of a placement agent that you really trust? And they'll help you. These people are all trained to help everybody, so that, they would love to answer those questions for you. I think it's nice to have a placement agent because it's similar to going to buy a home, right? If you go into 3 different houses, every house has a real estate agent that they're trying to sell that home to you. And just like that scenario, every assisted living has a salesperson that is trying to sell that assisted living to you, or, board and care or memory care unit. But if you have your own insurance or realtor that is touring you these different houses, they're going to point out the pros and cons, whereas the person selling you the home might not know. So it's kind of similar with a placement agent. The placement agent's going to know the specific things that you're looking for and really show you the options that are best for you and know what questions to ask along the way. So it's really good to have them in your corner.
Absolutely. This is my career. It's what I've chosen to do, and I truly love it. So one of the things that I would say that families don't know when they embark on this journey and they maybe find themselves working with a placement agent is just like working with a realtor, you will want to only work with one at a time. It's a referral-based service. That's how it works. So if you're working with a large online entity, it's the same way, right? They're going to collect your information. They're going to give your information to a community, and they are paid. Placement agencies, whether they're large or small, are paid when you take possession of the apartment. They are paid their referral fee. So I know many people say it is free for the resident to use, the future resident and family to use, but there is a cost that still is given to the referral agent. I think that's very important to know. I tell every single family I work with, I'm very clear that I believe in what I call ethical placement, being very clear about how someone is paid through this process. And good placement agents, a good local placement agent, will have previously toured any community they bring you to. They will know the pros and cons, and they'll be able to work with your desired location, your budget constraints, and your care needs. And they should understand very well the care that is needed. And oftentimes that is accomplished by doing an in-person assessment on your loved one.
So here in California, a placement agent cannot help you find a skilled nursing facility.
Correct.
And that is because they are paid through Medicare and Medicaid dollars. So that is why it's a little bit different. Skilled nursing facilities, again, they're a little bit more institutionalized, and I hate to use that word because I feel like it also gives that negative connotation, but they can perform a higher level of care. So something like feeding tubes, they can do, some of them do on-site dialysis, which is really cool. Wound care, things like that, and they have round-the-clock care. A nurse has to be there at all times, which is a big difference from an assisted living. In the assisted living, a nurse doesn't necessarily always have to be there, or they don't have to be there at all sometimes. So a placement agent can't help you with that. What would be a good way to find a skilled nursing facility that you want to go to?
Yeah, this question I get all of the time. So I get this question based on even if someone wants to do their rehab. So keep in mind, we've said it a couple of times, but I want to kind of just drill it in so we know. When you fall or when you have a medical health need and you have 3 sleeps, meaning 3 nights in the hospital, and you need to have rehab, you can go to a skilled nursing facility for that rehab. We often see people, dependent on insurance, stay for between 14 to 21 days to get better. Although I speak to many families, their first question is, my loved one can stay there for 100 days. That's a little bit, yes, they can stay there for 100 days.
It's a great answer, right? It's gray because that's how many days Medicare will pay for.
In a calendar year.
But if you have signed your Medicare over to another insurance provider and they control that Medicare, they decide how long you can stay there. So you can always appeal the process as well. So if you are still under your 100 days and you feel like, you're making a little bit of progress, but you don't feel like you're going to be safe at home, you can make an appeal and they might grant your appeal and let you stay there longer.
And that is something that the insurance doesn't just willy-nilly decide. They actually take into account what the physician says, your progress notes with physical therapy and so forth to come up with that decision. But my favorite way to find it actually is Medicare.gov. There is a way that you can compare. So you can enter in your zip code and it will go ahead and populate those that are closest to you. And they'll tell them the star rating. And actually, Francesca and I do this all the time. We refer it to people we talk to, and you can look up and see why the citations and why they happened and what are the complaints. We've done deep dives into this.
So a facility might have 5 stars, which means they're amazing, 4 stars, 3 stars, but they can be dinged for things that you might not think are that bad, right? Maybe they didn't file their paperwork correctly, but it's a really beautiful facility and you're kind of thinking, oh, I would love to rehab there. They have private rooms, right? But they're only 3 stars. You can click on the 3 stars and say, like, they didn't have a fire hydrant by the door at that time, so they got dinged for it. So I definitely encourage everyone just to look at them, even if you're not going to skilled nursing facility anytime soon. Just check it out because it's interesting to know.
Absolutely. Anything can happen, right? And one of the things about skilled nursing facilities throughout the United States is that if someone has limited income and they need to reside using Medicaid money, long-term custodial care in a skilled nursing facility is an option, meaning your loved one can reside in the skilled nursing facility long-term as a housing option. Medicaid will take the vast majority of their income, but they will have safe housing. They will be provided with activities, food, and there are many residents who really enjoy living in one.
Right. It can be considered a social setting. Not as social as an assisted living. So I think the major difference I would see skilled versus an assisted living facility, we call them ALFs for short, would be that they have a lot more outings. They leave, they go on a bus, they go exciting places. At an assisted living, at a skilled nursing, you mostly stay in the skilled. I would say a good amount of the time you're staying in the skilled nursing facility.
And the skilled nursing facility, if you live there long term, it's certainly going to be a shared room. It might be 2, 3 to 4 to a room.
Right.
There isn't a lot of private spaces. Whereas one of the differences within assisted living, you can truly have your own apartment, right? Your own little adorable apartment. There's many options. There's actually some very grand apartments as well.
And you have a kitchen in an assisted living facility. In a skilled nursing facility, it is kind of bare bones, I would say.
Absolutely. So we've talked a little bit about a skilled nursing facility. We're going to now jump to independent living. So we briefly shared that independent living is your own apartment. So there are many different options for these, and they actually have some now that have full kitchens and are completely beautiful and very, very fancy.
So I'd say most independent livings, not all of them, but most of them have a cafeteria style kitchen on site as well, where they're going to make your meals. So they serve really, really big meals there to a lot of people, versus living in your own apartment that doesn't have the independent living tag on it. You have to make all of your own food, just like you or I do, right? So that's kind of cool. And if you don't love to cook, that might be a good option for you. I think they also offer a laundry service. Sometimes it's an extra fee, but
And one of the big differences between an apartment and independent living is like a true just apartment. So if you're going to a senior apartment that you, that's just truly standalone apartment. One of the big differences in independent living is that you no longer have to pay your utilities. Your utilities are covered. Some places will have you pay for cable. Some will have basic cable. So it really is this all-in-one where now your food is covered. Your if you're using their local transportation and you're no longer driving, your transportation is covered within reason, right? You sign up for that, as well as basic housekeeping. Typically, it's weekly housekeeping, and there may be a small fee as you shared for laundry, and then there's the social environment as well. So it's really nice if someone just doesn't want to think about, oh, I have to pay this bill or this bill, and they're looking to be more social. It can be a really great option for folks.
I would say the biggest drawback to independent living is if you do fall. We keep talking about falls because it's very important once you become an older adult. If you do fall in independent living, they cannot help you. They have to call 911 because it is independent and they are not supposed to provide any sort of care. If you do need care outside of just a regular basis, you do need to hire an in-home care agency. And a lot of these independent livings have one on staff that just stay in the building. So that is an option. But once you need kind of a little bit more care, almost daily care, then the best place to go is an assisted living.
It's an assisted living. I would say a lot of people are able to stay in an independent living for a long time. When I really start to see that transition for folks is when they need a lot of bathroom help, because you can schedule in shower help. You can schedule in other types of help, getting to doctor's appointments. You really can't schedule in bathroom help. Right. Bathroom help is something that you're going to need all of a sudden. And when folks in independent living start needing a lot of bathroom help or a lot of confusion with memory issues, such as maybe they have dementia, then folks start to really consider moving to a different place, whereas assisted living is often the next tier of where they'll go. With both independent living and assisted living, there is a wide range of pricing for how it goes. There is actually some really great websites that can really accurately, we were surprised at how accurately determine your care.
We mentioned it in the last video because it was the same website that you can use to see how much in-home care would cost. So we'll link it again below, and you can just choose the option for assisted living. It's surprisingly accurate in our opinion for Northern California, which is the area that we're familiar with. So I imagine it would be just as accurate everywhere else.
Yes. And so with assisted living, just like independent living, oftentimes it's your own little apartment with a very minimal kitchen most of the time, meaning you'll have a little fridge, you may have a microwave. There are some options that are full kitchens in case that is something you still utilize. but most people in assisted living will do their dining at the community dining room. And I will tell you, some of the food is delicious.
Some of the food is actually really amazing. Some of these chefs have been on television.
Yes.
So I think that, in my opinion, that can kind of be a drawback sometimes, because you've been eating sandwiches and chips and salads in your home that you've prepared for yourself, and suddenly
or TV dinner. A lot of TV dinner happening.
And sometimes you go to these independent livings and it's like having gourmet meals
Or the
every
assisted
single night.
living, yeah.
And sometimes it's hard to adjust, you know? But I mean, we're very spoiled, and we love we love the food in assisted living.
Yes, we love the food in assisted living. And so most folks will take their meals. They can have snacks. There's wonderful activities such as happy hours where they'll bring live music in. You can go on transportation. So very similar to independent living, where they'll have a lot of those similarities. What you will have is care there.
Right.
So oftentimes in assisted living, you will wear a pendant, and a little circular pendant is very, very similar to fall devices where you press the button.
Right.
But now when you need help, if you need help going to the bathroom, like we discussed, you would press a button and you would wait for the care staff, which is on site 24 hours a day, to come and assist you in your apartment or wherever you are in the community, to the restroom or to shower or to help get dressed, whatever your care needs may be. And I will say not every assisted living is the same.
Right.
Some assisted livings can help with minimal care needs, and some assisted livings help with everything, with full scope. And it just happens to be different. Every corporation or company has their own take on what a social model of care is. There are limits, there are health conditions that are prohibited, and oftentimes that in assisted living will look like feeding tubes, maybe behaviors that are difficult to handle, which we will discuss in depth in just a few minutes. But for assisted living, again, if you have a complicated case, you would want to work with a placement agent to help you find the right fit for that.
I would say a lot of times people wait until things are really, really dire to move their loved one into assisted living, where they maybe have really advanced dementia with behaviors, and that can be a little bit more difficult. But a good assisted living and a good placement agent can really, really help your family.
I know you guys want to know about the cost and how the cost works out. So we're definitely going to talk about that. And I did not mention it with independent living, so I'm sorry. But with independent and assisted living, it's very, very similar. They both will likely have a community fee, which is a one-time move-in fee. That fee will not be charged again. Again, it's one time. It's not a yearly fee. That is probably one of my most commonly asked questions that families will ask me is, will it come up year after year? No, one time. So oftentimes that community fee is equivalent to the first month's rent. So if the first month's rent in the studio or one bedroom apartment of your choice is $5,000 a month, that community fee is oftentimes $5,000 for that one time. In independent living, it would just be that community fee and then that apartment rate that you're paying upon move-in. Some independent livings do have you pay first and last and have you go through the whole credit check, and many do not. Many do not at all and model it exactly like assisted living. The difference between assisted living is that you would then have care fees, which Francesca briefly chatted about. Care fees are boiled down to how many minutes a caregiver is spent with you. That is truly, they can do it all kinds of ways. They'll either have levels of care or they'll have points. Those are the two ways. But even levels of care are points that are broken down. And how that is determined, at least here in California, is there's a physician's report for the elderly that your physician will fill out for you on your behalf. If you're at the skilled physician will fill it out. If you're at a hospital, the hospital physician will fill it out. But that physician's report will go over many questions about what your day-to-day life looks like and what kind of help you need. That, along with the in-person assessment that the nurse will do and assign the medication list of all your medication will be how they will determine what your care level will be. And again, it boils down to all those points. They'll input it in a computer, they'll fill out a form, input in computer, and it'll come up with a calculation. But what it really boils down to is how many minutes the care staff will be helping your loved one. And that is truly the formula it is. And that care level can be anywhere from $500 a month to, I have had clients who go to luxury buildings that are paying over $5,000 a month for care. So the rates that you would pay upon move-in would be that one-time community fee, that fee for the apartment, and then your care. And then on a monthly basis, you would be paying your monthly rent of the apartment and your care levels. So it's very similar with a memory care as well. They have the same type of rate structure for that.
So that form is called a 602. If we can find an example, we'll link it just so you know if you are quickly moving from a hospital or skilled stay into an assisted or memory care, you're going to hear them say 602, 602, 602, and that they need that form. There's nothing on there that's super scary or super confusing, but every single building, at least in California, needs that form before you can do absolutely anything.
It is required. So what is required to move into anything that is licensed by the Department of Social Services. Again, this is not needed for independent living, but anything that's licensed, so that'll be a residential care home, also known as boarding care, an assisted living, and or a memory care, is going to be the LIC 602A. I do have a blank PDF copy. We'll ensure that we link that down below so you can just look at it if you'd like. You will need a current TB test within the last 6 months, and you will need a signed medication list. That medication list needs to be signed by a physician, and it needs to have anything on there that's over the counter. So even vitamins need to be on there. Anything beyond like washing your hair and toothpaste needs to be on there. And I'm talking about things you put on your body. So if you put medicated ointments and things like that, that also needs to be listed, because it is not, physicians are not at these communities, and there are limited nursing hours at many of them. They follow this to a T. Again, that is mandated by the Department of Social Services. Skilled nursing facilities are its own beast because they are mandated by a different department, right? And this is a very California base that we're talking about. Every state will have their own conditions.
Yeah, something that surprises a lot of people. In skilled nursing, a registered nurse has to be there 24 hours a day. Mm-hmm. In an assisted living, a nurse doesn't have to be there at all legally. So a lot of them do have nurses, and they are there quite often, but legally they don't have to have a nurse on staff. So that can surprise a lot of people, because you're entrusting your loved one's care with this community, and you're like, where's the nurse? Where's the nurse? And they're like, oh, we use med techs, which is short for medication technician. And that is someone that's going to dole meds out for your loved one, but they are not licensed nurses. A lot of communities do have licensed nurses, but it's not required. So that can be surprising to a lot of people, because the cost is really, really high. Sometimes you can pay, sometimes up to $20,000 a month to live in an assisted living or a memory care, and there's no nurse.
Yes. And so what I would say is, again, based on your health condition, really understanding if you are diabetic, it is best practice to live in a community, especially if you cannot do your diabetic care on your own, where an LVN is on campus. At large communities, large memory cares, large assisted livings, that'll look like a 16-hour day for a nurse to be there. Many families say, oh, a nurse, you mean an RN? No, again, we're talking about an LVN, a licensed vocational nurse, which has different requirements than an RN. Also, another question I get probably at least weekly is, are all caregivers CNAs? They are not CNAs. These are caregivers that have likely been trained by the community that they work for, and or they've worked for in-home care previously and have come on or worked for another community or residential care home before.
I don't know, but in an assisted living, the caregivers, I assume, would have to go through the same training as being an in-home caregiver. And in the state of California, that's 8 hours of training. And they do have a license associated with that when they're an in-home caregiver. When you're in a facility, you don't necessarily have to be a licensed caregiver. It's a little bit different.
Yes, and so I want to be pretty clear about that. Many of the caregivers are actually CNAs, but it is not a requirement. And so please go in there with that expectation that that's not what it is. Now, you can live in assisted living with a memory care diagnosis. So if you have a dementia diagnosis, there are communities that will accept you. Some communities, the corporations, are a strong no and say, if you have a memory care diagnosis, meaning an actual dementia diagnosis, you will need to go to memory care. Whereas some will say, it's okay. You can live with us. It's based on behavior. Yeah. If they say, yes, it's okay, oftentimes they have Gero technology that we love called WanderGuard, which looks like a bracelet that you will then wear. And if your loved one walks out of the building when they're not supposed to, it will alert them. Right. If they do this too many times, then they will then go to memory care. Or if there's no memory care on their campus, it will be suggested that they move to memory care on a different campus. All of this, can my loved one leave unassisted? Does my loved one have a diagnosis of dementia or MCI, mild cognitive impairment? Is asked on the LIC 602A form. So but prior, just like we talked about the assessment, they will go over that.
So if you feel like your loved one is maybe having, sometimes you can have dementia-like symptoms and not have dementia. And if you think we have to get them to a doctor's appointment, a lot of times a UTI can present that way.
A urinary tract infection. Yes.
Right. And you think, no, I want to keep them in memory care. I want to keep them in assisted living. I don't want them moving to memory care. The building will tell you that you need a one-on-one, which is a caregiver assigned to your loved one that is sometimes, most of the time, separate from their staff, and it's someone that is with them the entire time. And it can be a surprising jump in cost because you also have to pay for that separate caregiver. So that's just something that we've experienced quite a bit together where the community is saying, if you want to stay on this side of the building, the assisted side, you need a one-on-one caregiver.
And that'll bring us to memory care, and we can talk about the difference between memory care. Again, they do have a locked model. Again, it's not fully locked. It's the egress doors within the state of California. Other states may have a fully locked model. Mm-hmm. I will say sometimes, even if you want your loved one to stay in assisted living, sometimes moving to memory care is the right fit.
Right.
To be with peers that may not always remember, maybe they'll ask your name over and over again every time they see you because you both are forgetting. Or maybe one will hold a baby doll because she's looking for her child that she thinks that she, is caring for still. Having that sometimes in assisted living, that forgetfulness or holding the baby doll can be upsetting actually for some residents who don't have any dementia, and they may accidentally leave your loved one out. Maybe they're not welcome at their table.
Right. There can be a lot of mean girl mentality, and it's not just women. I'm just using that as a term. It can be men as well who they just don't feel comfortable. It's a little bit awkward for them. I think a lot of people just don't know what to say when someone has a memory impairment or they have a dementia diagnosis and they're sitting with them. They don't know how to react. They don't know how to engage. So that's really when you need to, as a family member, kind of step back and think what's best for my loved one, not what's best for me, what makes them most comfortable, not what's best for our family, but what is best for that individual at the time. And a lot of people have a hard time coming to terms with the idea that their loved one lives in memory care, because a lot of people go to memory care as, just a normal, regular, everyday person who doesn't have dementia, and they get very scared. It's not a scary place for me. It's not a scary place for Cindy, but it can be overwhelming.
And it's just different. It's realizing that your loved one is aging, that things are changing. I think it's that reminder. But Francesca and I recently did an activity in memory care, and it was such a joy. We painted ornaments with them, and it was so fun to learn about the things they talk about and what memories they have retained and what's going on in their current life. We had such a great time. So I encourage you, if your loved one has dementia and you're looking at communities, please look at both. Look at assisted living options and look at memory care. But if your loved one is trying to exit seek, it is best practice to be in a memory care community. Absolutely. Activities will also be different. They will be tailored to those who have memory impairment, and it will be better for them, truly. Yeah. It really will. The activities look different, and they're really great. There's so many great things, and they actually have brought technology into memory cares. You can go, we chatted about it previously, and both Francesca and I have tried it. You can use the AI.
Goggles?
Yeah.
What are they called?
Rendeavor.
Oculars?
Yeah. Well, there's a few different options, but we've used the Rendeavor, and you can go on there, and it's a technology, and you can actually go to your house, well, the area you grew up, using Google Maps.
Yeah, you can go to Paris, you can go to Hong Kong, like you can go anywhere in the world and kind of walk around the streets. So it's very cool for older adults who had really exciting lives and they want to relive that, or someone who just grew up in their own backyard and like maybe never left their city, and they can put on these AI glasses and kind of experience something new.
Yeah, so there's so many cool different options when it comes to memory care. I would say embrace it, look at it. There's options where there's a lot of walking space and things like that. And there are moments and that Francesca was talking about where they're going to absolutely ask your loved one to leave. And Francesca, what are some of those things where assisted livings have called you in or they've contacted me to ask them to move? What are some of those things?
So when your loved one is experiencing behavioral and psychological symptoms of dementia, they maybe are hitting, spitting, biting, having sexual behaviors, which that can look like they are taking their clothes off, or they are verbally being very sexually aggressive. The community might ask them to either move into memory care if they're not already in memory care, or find a different memory care option, because especially in the memory care, they've got a good thing going sometimes. Like everyone's happy, everyone's in a good mood, and then this behavioral element comes in and it's almost like a bull in a china shop, right? Like they're upsetting everyone. Maybe we've seen individuals get physical with each other while they will push each other, harm each other,
yeah,
punch one another, bite one another, things like that, throw things. And it's upsetting not only to the person experiencing it, but it's also upsetting to the other individuals who have dementia and the staff who work there. So they will ask you as a family member to move your loved one to a more appropriate community.
Yes, and some of those more appropriate communities might actually be a residential care home. It's a good time to transition to that, I think. Residential care homes or boarding cares, they're so different. It's from each other, each one actually. They are small businesses that, again, are in home-like environments, meaning they're in a home. They've either been modified or they've been built from the ground up. We've seen some amazing options, and they can be great for people with limited budgets. There's some options that really start much lower than traditional assisted living, and or they can be really, really high end and beautiful
Sometimes
homes.
More expensive than assisted living.
Yes, and really tailor and customize the care, what they're eating, everything just for them. And it can be really amazing and beautiful, actually, on every option. I think when someone is getting what they need tailored for them, and there are options that will take people who have these behaviors and will work with them.
Right.
When you have behaviors such as we discussed, the first go-to will be medication changes.
Yes. And it might make you as a loved one uncomfortable because a lot of people assume that they are over medicating in these places, these facilities. It's not always true. Sometimes it is true, but it's not always true. Um, to kind of force someone into submission, and that's not always true. Sometimes someone is so irritated, right, that they absolutely need that medication to help calm them down. And sometimes the medication does not help at all. I will say I've seen a
It's
lot
finding
of
the
time.
balance.
Yeah.
Finding the balance is really tricky. There folks can utilize behavioral health.
Yes. So a behavioral health nurse or doctor can come in and monitor the psychotropic medications for you, and they will help recognize when something is maybe counteracting with another medication. Maybe you're getting too much of one thing, not enough of another. So that's an important thing to follow up with your primary physician on if you are having behaviors, because sometimes it is just a urinary tract infection that can also cause a lot of behavioral issues.
It really can. UTIs can be very difficult for those in particular who have dementia diagnoses, and they not always will the first antibiotic work.
Right.
We have seen cases where UTIs have turned into sepsis, and they've been very difficult to get rid of. So I will say UTIs can be very dangerous as well. Some differences I would say with boarding cares that we're going to talk about the payment is that boarding cares, yes, there can be options where it's the base rate of the room. And then, so if the base rate of a private room is, let's say, we'll use $5,000 a month again as an example, and then maybe they have 3 levels of care, and each care is $1,000 for the first level, $2,000 for the second level, $3,000 for the third level. So your total is $8,000 per month. And typically they don't have community fees, although more and more residential care homes are starting to implement community fees as well. I will say many of the residential care homes really are just one rate that they'll start out. They know that this is expensive, and they'll try to keep you at that rate as long as possible. They also do have shared rooms at a lot of these.
Right.
So again, these are homes that have been transformed, right? And so they might have just 2 bathrooms in the home. They may have the master bedroom, may have 2 people to a room. So there are some different options. Eating, they will cook 3 meals a day for you, typically family style. I have been in somewhere the food smells amazing, and it's from scratch cooking every day. The goal is for it to be fresh. Some people do have a mix of frozen vegetables and things like that. But the goal is for it not to be Kraft mac and cheese. I will be very clear. The goal is for the cooking to be fresh, healthy, heart-healthy meals for people.
I would say the biggest difference, in my opinion, from an assisted living to a boarding care is the boarding care is a little bit more like family. Like you sit at the table every day and you eat like a family, versus the assisted living, you're in more of a restaurant style meal setting. So it just depends on what you want. And
The activities are vastly different as well.
One, yeah.
Some residential care homes do offer activities, some do not. And really, it's going to be dependent on the group of people. It is 6 people to a home. So if you have a very active loved one who's like, I want to play bingo every day, this may not be the right fit for a home if the other 5 are bedridden, right? So it's really dependent on what the other residents are like. Of course, the caregivers will do their best. And there's some residential care homes where every person there wants to play bingo. So it's very crucial to tour these residential care homes. I say that very crucial, even if you're looking on your own. It's so important. And this is where I think, in my opinion, a placement agent is very, very helpful, because they can show you the different residential care homes and tell you exactly how they compare to the other ones, and stay within your budget for them. Caregivers are there 24 hours a day. There is 2 different models. So there is a model where there will be a caregiver awake with your loved one during the day, typically 2 caregivers during the day. And then the caregiver at night will sleep through the night and get up on demand, much like having a new baby at home, right? Like
Right.
your mom will get up on an emergency basis. That is how I really explain it to families is the caregiver will get up on an emergency basis. They will often get up and do rounds throughout the night, even if there is sleep through the night staff. The other model is that there will be awake staff during the day, of course, and then awake staff at night as well. That is my favorite model when it comes to residential care home. That night staff can actually take on some of what the day staff will typically do. They can prepare meals, meaning cut everything, get everything ready, maybe for morning smoothies or for cut all the vegetables for your dinner. They can do the bulk of the cleaning and the laundry, and of course, take care of the care needs. So that tends to be my favorite model for these communities.
I would say ask those questions, right? And if it's important to you to have someone awake at night, and I would say a lot of the times when you're moving your loved one into a board and care facility, they could be falling a lot. That's the most important falls. Again, we're going to keep saying it. That's the most important time to have awake staff, because if you have dementia and you want to get up, like I've seen the most determined people of my life try to get up when they have dementia, and they are not supposed to get up because they're very frail. The awake
Even when
staff
they
has
don't
to
have
be,
dementia.
yeah, the awake staff has to be, pretty on it. The asleep staff are not going to always catch that.
And that's really when, whether it's awake or sleep staff, bed alarms, the mats where you get off of the bed and you put your feet down and it alarms, all of these pieces of technology can actually be found on Amazon, and we'll include that information. And again, that range of prices is really, really wide. As far as Northern California, it can truly start with a shared room for $4,500 a month, sometimes even $4,000 a month for a shared room. And it can go all the way up to $10,000 or just over $10,000 for a private room in a luxury place, full care. So again, touring is so crucial. I would never just pick something willy-nilly. And again, if you need a placement agent, as Francesca mentioned, you can ask your local assisted living facility, you can ask your social worker, you can ask your physician, you can go on Nextdoor and ask. A lot of people ask on Facebook or ask their personal friends and family. And I would say ask any placement agent, whether it's someone that's truly online only, like a Place for Mom, or whether it's a local agent like myself, to ask them a lot of questions about how they vet places, and have they been in places, what's the support they offer to families as well. I think it's so important. But one of the most often overlooked pieces of all of this is the people who work there. So Francesca, talk to us a little bit about the people who work in these communities.
So I would say, especially in skilled nursings and boarding cares, like they don't have a lot in common typically, but I would say on both ends of that spectrum, you're going to see a lot of women, mostly women, working in these facilities and boarding cares. A lot of people of color and a lot of immigrants. So COVID, when we're talking about pricing, COVID really pushed those prices really through the roof. And
it was drastic and very quick. Yeah.
You cannot go backwards, right? Once you pay someone a certain rate, you can't pay them less. So we really saw the price of care go up quite like it was like elevator all throughout COVID, because the people that our industry really, really is supported by are people that also a lot of times take care of their families, and they were risking a lot to work during COVID, to work in these places. So it's just an important kind of thing to note. And a lot of people get really attached to their caregivers, I would say, and it's very lovely to see, because those people sometimes are with your loved ones more than their families are, and they become like family to them. So
absolutely. I would say caregiving is a very hard job for assisted living, residential care homes, even independent living. The workers who are there, that's the heartbeat of the building, right? And so treat your caregivers well.
Yeah.
I know in large communities they have resident council that raises money and they do Christmas parties for caregivers, which I think is so wonderful. But I always say thank you to the care staff that's on the floor, especially if they're doing it with a smile. It can be a very tough job, and many of them do have children. Maybe they're trying to go to school, and it's a hard job and often underpaid.
And I think a lot of people get really angry at caregivers when they're in these settings because they see that maybe their loved one is pushing this pendant and nobody's coming. And it's been 5 minutes. And when you're sitting there looking at your watch for 5 minutes, that 5 minutes feels like a lifetime. And you can get very angry very quickly. I know I can. If that were my mom, I would get angry as well. But sometimes there are 100 people that are living in these assisted livings if they're a big community. So just try to keep that in mind.
Absolutely. And if you're having issues with the care that's being provided or you're waiting too long for wait times, I always recommend to have a care conference with the staff first, and really try to sit down and figure out what's going on and what changes can be made to care plans, or what expectations can really, maybe they didn't understand, or there wasn't understanding coming in how many checks your loved one needed. And so I think expectations can be adjusted on both sides as well.
It's all about communication.
It's
for sure.
all about communication. I would say California is an amazing place to live if you have limited income, because there's a lot of programs. Some of them are very brand new. And so we talked about skilled nursing facilities where you can live throughout the United States with limited income. There's other options in California as well. It's very new, and so it can be very confusing.
Right.
We will devote an entire episode to what those options are.
Right.
So that's our touch on it for this episode. But there are another set of people. You can be lower income and have your housing in assisted living or skilled setting paid for. You can be wealthy, and maybe you can pay $7,000 a month and above for assisted living options, which is becoming the norm. Again, sometimes it can be high. It can be $12,000, $13,000, $14,000 for large communities when you have complex care needs. But what about the other folks?
So I always point out there are neglected middle income people, right? I mean, most people in America are middle income. So there are options for low income older adults. And obviously, if you are wealthy, you kind of, the world is your oyster. But these middle income older adults, they lack eligibility for that supplemental safety net of programs that are provided by the government. And obviously, they don't have money to spend on luxury assisted livings, and they kind of get forgotten. And a lot of times those middle income older adults don't know what their options are. So there is a lot of discussion about how we're going to close that gap. And I think a lot of people I've seen, at least, first and foremost, my mother lives with me. So that is the obvious answer, right? If you have children, if you have extended family, you can hopefully, right, join their household or stay in their household. And we're going to see a lot more intergenerational living as we progress as a society. I think that would be my suggestion or my answer to my family growing older.
That would be my answer as well. I think we talk about this middle income a lot. It's fascinating to us, right? Because the lower income has the social services options, and then the higher income has planned for it very, very well. And a lot of the middle income can pay for it, but maybe they can't pay for it long term, or maybe they're trying to help their children also survive. So I really believe in multi-family and or intergenerational living. And actually, so do a lot of people that are in the sandwich generation, which are like myself, that have young children, but also have parents. So in 2024, 17% of the home buyers were buying homes within that sandwich generation that are intergenerational homes, homes where you can have more than just your immediate family live with you. So maybe that's a parent, maybe it's a grandma or grandpa that needs to live with you as well. So we are seeing an increase in that. And I do think that's one of the easiest answers. But Francesca was just sharing with me that there are some very misleading things on Facebook and Instagram ads that are targeted to those people.
I wouldn't say just ads. There are like full on like bloggers that are explaining like you can get a tax deduction if you buy a second home or you build an ADU, you're going to get this huge tax deduction if you just stick your parents in there. And first off, maybe your parents don't want to live there, you know.
Most people do want to stay in their own home.
Right. And second, they're totally writing off the fact that someone needs to care for those people who are aging, and just buying them a home is not enough. If that's your answer, I am sorry to say you're going to have to rethink it a little bit, because someone does have to actually physically care for them. And that's the hardest piece, in my opinion. So that there is some sort of tax benefit to buying a second home in order for your parents to age into it. The government's not providing them care, though. That's very rare.
Yeah, and I know a lot of counties in California now will give you ADU credits or funding to build an ADU. But again, that same thing happens. You move your parents in and it's working well for a while. You're able to get them to their appointments. You're able to have them join you for dinners. They can fix things in the microwave. But what happens when they need that incontinent care? What happens when they need help toileting and you're not comfortable with that, or you're at work and your loved one needs help with the bathroom?
Suddenly exit, they forget their name and they can't find their way home.
Yes, and then the police are bringing them home, or a friendly neighbor is. So there are a lot of things to think about, and that day-to-day care is one of them. So you would have to factor that into the cost, and it can be very expensive if you're private paying.
And there's the other option is IHSS, in-home support services. That is a Medicaid program, so your parents have to be on Medicaid in order to receive that benefit. And a lot of people assume that they can be the caregiver and get paid that IHSS benefit, which a lot of times you can be the caregiver. But first off, it's not a lot of money.
I do think that's very misleading, because I myself actually saw an Instagram post where someone was claiming it was significantly more money than it is. And
it's almost minimum wage.
It's not minimum wage, but it's just above.
Yeah.
And it differs from state to state, right? So I really, please be wary of the advice that you're taking. Yes, we're giving you advice as well, so be wary from us too. But again, we're working on our master's in gerontology. Education is very important to us, and we deep dive into this stuff for fun.
Well, and just because we say it's true, it might not be true for your situation. And I think that a lot of people assume that they can take care of their parents and someone has to quit their job to do that and the state's going to pay them. It's probably not going to replace your regular income, and you have to be approved for IHSS even if you are already on Medicaid, and they decide how many hours of care your parents
need. And it's
need.
not as many as you think it will be.
Yeah.
I will say people have to fight really hard to get max hours, and max hours still for some people is not enough. So
I think in the state of California, max hours is less than 300 hours a month, which when you break that down, that's not a lot of care. If your loved one needs to be monitored 24 hours a day, you are not getting paid 24 hours a day to actually watch them.
We hope we answered a lot of questions.
We went over a lot of things.
A lot of things. Please ask any questions down below. We're happy to dive into this much deeper, and each style of living will likely have its own episode in the future.
Yes, and we'll have people guest and come on to answer questions that we don't have the answers to. So if you have any super burning questions or you want us to clarify something in a future episode, write your comments below and we'll try to answer them.
Definitely. We're really excited about our next episode. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
So the next episode is going to be a little less formal. It's going to be a portrait of an older adult. So someone who is 65 and up, and we're going to just talk about their lives a little bit.
Yes, I think it's so fun. I love learning from the people we help. I think that's one of my favorite things. So I can't wait to start interviewing some really cool older adults.
Cool. So definitely stay tuned for that, but we are out.
Yep, we're wrapped up. We thank you for being with us today, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Yeah, so don't forget to follow us on our journey.
Yep, thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.